Colonial. At ease. And 1 and Once again, good afternoon and welcome. Today, the United States Army Military District of Washington, represented by the soldiers of the 3rd United States Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, and the United States Army Band, Pershing Zone, pay a special tribute to General Gary M. Bridto, 18th Commanding General of the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command, who is retiring after 38 years of distinguished service to the United States Army and our nation. Participating in today's review, from left to right, is the United States Army Band, Pershing Zone. Formed in 1922 by then Army Chief of Staff, General John J. Blackjack Pershing, the United States Army Band is the premier band of our senior service. Pershing Zone provides musical support for ceremonies and special events in our nation's capital and throughout the United States. The United States Army Band is under the direction of First Lieutenant Bernardo Mite and led by Drum Major Daniel Ord. Elements of the Old Guard include Honor Guard Company, commanded by Captain Taylor Massa, and led by First Sergeant Shane Grinder. Next online is Battle Hard Company, commanded by Captain Peter Howell, and led by First Sergeant Joshua Plant. Next online is Headhunters Company, commanded by Captain Daniel Hernandez, and led by First Sergeant Dylan Eby. Following is the Commander-in-Chief's Guard, patterned after the unit created by General George Washington in 1776 to be his personal guard. The Commander-in-Chief's Guard is commanded by Captain Sean Martin and led by First Sergeant Weston Blakely. The last element online, dressed in the Continental Musician's uniform, is the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. During the American Revolution, musicians wore the reverse colors of their parents' infantry unit. The men and women of the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps maintained this tradition by wearing red coats instead of the infantry blue. The Corps is led today by Drum Major Barrett Newman. Ladies and gentlemen, moving into position is the commander of troops for today's ceremony, Colonel Thomas Kilbride, Commander, 3rd United States Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. Since the days of the American Revolution, the colors have been one of the most important elements of a military unit. Therefore, taking the center of our formation in just a moment and bearing the national color is the nation's foremost color team, the 3rd Infantry's Continental Color Guard, led by Sergeant Eric Driswicki. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the advancing of the colors.
Advance the colors.
Please be seated.
Left. Face. Colors ready. Cut. Color. Dress center. Dress. Officers. Dress center. Dress. Ready, front. Officers, ready, front.
The history of the 3rd United States Infantry Regiment reflects the growth and development of our nation. 55 well-earned battle streamers, 2 Valorous Unit Awards, 3 Meritorious Unit Commendations, and 5 Superior Unit Awards attest to the Old Guard's record of bravery in action and achievements during peacetime. In 1922, the War Department granted permission for the Old Guard to pass in review with bayonets fixed. The Old Guard will now fix bayonets to the traditional beat of the drum.
Sound, fix, bayonets.
Ladies and gentlemen, taking the reviewing stand is the reviewing official for today's ceremony, General Gary Bridto, accompanied by the host, General Randy A. George, 41st Chief of Staff of the Army. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as honors are rendered and remain standing for the invocation delivered by Chaplain Brigadier General Jack Stumey, United States Army Deputy Chief of Chaplains.
Present. Arms. Staff. Present. Arms.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chaplain Brigadier General Jack Stumey.
Please join me in prayer. Gracious God, with grateful hearts, we pause to acknowledge your presence in this moment as we honor General Gary Bridto and celebrate his legacy of service and leadership. We give you thanks for guiding General Bridto for nearly 4 decades as he helped shape our Army and strengthen our nation, displaying strength, humility, and heart. We also thank you for his family, for Michelle, his faithful spouse and partner in every season, for Matthew and Patrick, who now carry forward his legacy, and for the many seen and unseen sacrifices and acts of service this family has made along their Army journey. Now, Lord, bless what comes next for them. Fill this next chapter with rest and renewed purpose. Be on point for them, guiding their steps and granting them joy in knowing that they have served well. And please watch over our military who keep freedom strong, and bless their families. Continue to strengthen our Army with courage, our nation with wisdom, and our world with peace. Let freedom ring, let righteousness rise, and let your will be done. In your most holy name, amen.
Please be seated.
Stand up!
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the advancing of the colors and remain standing for the United States National Anthem, sung by Sergeant First Class Keenan McCarter.
Colors, forward! Forward! Shoulder, firelocks, and one, and two, and three. Present! Horse! And one, and two, and three. Detachment, present! Horse!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Detachment, order! Horse!
Please be seated.
Order! Horse! Order! Firelocks, and one, and two, and three. Parallel. At east. And one, and two.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, July 9th, 1918, has awarded the Distinguished Service Medal to General Gary M. Bridto, United States Army, for exceptionally meritorious service to the government of great responsibility over a 38-year career, culminating as the Commander, Headquarters, United States Army Training and Doctrine Command. General Bridto demonstrated inspirational leadership, unsurpassed strategic vision, and an unparalleled depth and breadth of operational experience that propelled the organization forward in uncertain times. His tireless devotion to duty and deep-rooted love for his country, soldiers, civilians, and family members distinctly set a precedent amongst those with whom he served. General Britto's actions are in keeping with the finest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command, and the United States Army. Headquarters, Department of the Army Special Order. By order of the Secretary of the Army, the following general officer is retired. General Gary M. Bridto. General George is now presenting the United States flag to General Bridto for his faithful service to his country. General George is now presenting General Bridto with a special gift, a salute casing from the Presidential Battery. On the occasion of retirement of this distinguished soldier, we recognize the outstanding service of his spouse, Mrs. Michelle Bridto, who is being presented with the Distinguished Public Service Medal. Mrs. Bridto distinguished herself by exceptionally superior public service in support of the U.S. Army. Mrs. Bridto excelled as an ambassador for America's Army, telling the Army story to communities at home and abroad. Mrs. Britto's 38 years of selfless service and commitment to soldiers, their families, and Army civilian professionals reflect great credit upon herself, the United States Army, and the Department of War. On the occasion of retirement of this distinguished soldier, we also must recognize the outstanding service of Mrs. Michelle Bridto, who is being presented with the Department of the Army Certificate of Appreciation for her faithful and devoted service. It is dedicated support which made possible such a lasting contribution to our nation. Signed, General Randy A. George, Chief of Staff of the Army. At this time, General Bridto is presenting a bouquet of red roses to Mrs. Bridto, signifying his love by honoring her for her unwavering support for over 38 years of military service. We are proud to recognize General and Mrs. Britto's devotion to our country, and we wish them happiness and prosperity in their well-earned retirement. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the posting of the colors.
Post the colors. Step. Right. Face.
Please be seated.
Left. Face. Pass and review. Hold guard. Pass and review. Right. Backward. Face.
Ladies and gentlemen, General George.
I know you won't have to adjust it, Gary, so we're good. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see everyone here. Secretary Warmup, thanks for joining us. We got a couple of our assistant secretaries, Agnes Carey, great to see you. General Ward, General Vi, General Potter, Laura, great to see you. And I know SMA Grinston is up there with SMA Weimer. Great to see everybody here today. I know there's probably a fewer faces in the audience because of the government shutdown. I know there were other people that wanted to come, but it's great that you all could join us here to celebrate Gary's career. So like I always do, I want to start off, and Gary's got a couple of cohorts. I know you've been in 38 years. There's probably a whole bunch I could probably stand up here and talk about, but I want to start with the G1 team. Who do we have out here in the G1 team? All right, stand up. Stand up. I want to know why you guys aren't at work. So everything, and I think Gary knows this, everything that, probably you get in trouble for when you go home that's not straight pay, everything else, leave, whatever, really important things continue to go on, and Gary did that very, very well as our G1 for a couple of years, so big shout out to them. And then how about TRADOC? And hopefully, who's out here from TRADOC? All right, stand up, got our TRADOC team. And I know we just had probably a little bit of an emotional ceremony with what's going on, but there's probably no other command over the last 53 years that's done more to shape where our Army is at today than TRADOC. And we're obviously moving forward, and Gary put us on a great path, and I want to thank you for that. But for all our teammates who will continue to do that as part of T2Com, thank you for being here. Gary, you've been the consummate leader, mentor, teammate, and friend to me, and you've left an indelible mark on our Army and the soldiers that serve in it. But before I talk about you, I want to take a moment to recognize the family and friends, and I know you'll do more of that, who are a part of Team Bridto and have supported Gary through his short 38-year journey. First and foremost, Michelle, and I don't know if I'm going to get some pictures up here. I know I did want to have a picture. And I'm told it all started at a frat party at Penn State. So I don't have all the details, but I imagine that Gary and Michelle were probably enjoying a friendly game of Scrabble or Monopoly. I don't have a lot of traditional college experience. That sounds about right for a frat party. Is that right, Gary? Well, whatever the case, Gary knew that night that Michelle was the one. So I hope you didn't tell her that in your pickup line, Gary. It's proof that when you know, you know. Because lo and behold, here we are 38 years later, and their partnership, their relationship is stronger than ever. Michelle, I know that Gary promised you after he proposed that you'd only have to do the Army thing for 4 years. But I also know that staying in the Army was a team decision. So thank you for putting up with Army life. Even better, for pouring your heart into every unit and community that Gary has been a part of. You've been a tremendous mentor to spouses across our formations and an example of grace, compassion, and support as you've held everything together through moves, deployments, and all the challenges of military life. And thanks, too, for leading the way, raising your 2 sons. So big round of applause for Michelle. I want to recognize Gary and Michelle's 2 boys here. First, Matthew, who's a financial management advisor in Department of the Army Civilian, so I want to know where all our budget's going, so I'll talk to Matt after this. And Patrick, who we were just reliving. I know we served in Afghanistan at the same time a couple years back, but is an Apache pilot out with 25th ID in Hawaii, and I'm also told going to be a Downing Scholar here pretty soon, so a great leader inside of our formation. All right, I did tell Patrick he's got 27 years remaining on his, just to keep it consistent with Team Bridto. I also want to welcome the many friends in the audience who joined us today, including Gary's dad, James, from Onset, Massachusetts, his sister Lisa from Quincy, Massachusetts, and Colonel Retired Keatron Todd, who is Gary's neighbor at Command and General Staff College and has attended every one of Gary's promotions and changes of command. And I think only in the Army do you find neighbors like that. Thank you for being here. There's also a slew of other friends, family members, and former soldiers, and I'm sure Gary will talk about some of them from all over our country. So besides Massachusetts, Las Vegas, Georgia, and Virginia, thank you all for being here to help us celebrate a great career of Team Bridto. Now Gary. Originally from the Cape Cod area in Massachusetts, Gary went to college at Penn State. There might be some Penn State alum in here. He had no Army plans when he went to Penn State, but he picked up a brochure on ROTC when he was 2 years in and thought he'd give it a go as an extracurricular. Proof that all that marketing material really does work. It was a kind of opposite situation here than it was with Michelle. Gary's relationship with the Army started as kind of casual, non-committal sort of thing. But he was hooked after he went to do some training at Fort Bragg. And I'd say that if you fall in love with the Army after a summer of sand fleas and poison ivy, then you're probably always destined for the infantry. After commissioning, Gary led troops all over our Army, including commanding the 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry, and 3rd ID, Rock of the Marne, commanding 120th Infantry Brigade, and serving as the Deputy Commanding General for Sustainment and then Operations for our 25th Infantry Division. Gary knows our combat training centers through and through, and I've seen him there several times. He served twice at the National Training Center as a trainer, and then as our commanding general for the Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk. He did his time at the Pentagon, as I mentioned earlier, as our Army G1, and he has served in TRADOC in multiple capacities, including as on the Commander's Planning Group, as the XO to the CG, and as Director of Force 2025 and beyond, and finally as our 18th Commanding General. Gary, your impact on our Army, and especially on training and doctrine command, has been enormous. Every single soldier in our formations has spent time in a TRADOC unit. TRADOC is where our troopers learned what right looked like, how to drill, do land nav, counsel subordinates, and plan operations. The energy you poured into the team ensured that every one of our soldiers grew from that TRADOC experience. As I mentioned earlier, last week we inactivated TRADOC, which has served as a bedrock for our Army profession for over 50 years. And as I said at that ceremony, this is a natural next step as our Army faces future challenges and continuously transforms to meet them. The foundation your team built will carry the new transformation and training command forward to success. Gary, I always like to sum people up with 3 things, so I'll give it a go. First, you are an unflappable warfighter who brings out the best in a team, even when stress is high. As one of your former soldiers, Lieutenant Colonel Leon Mathias, shared, it was General Britto's steadfast leadership in combat that gave my soldiers and me the confidence to execute our mission to the very best of our ability. Really, there's no higher praise for someone in our trade. Second, Gary, you are a leader who cares genuinely about our people, and you show it by giving your subordinates the tools they need to grow. One of the captains on the TRADOC staff, reflecting on the mentorship you imparted, put it this way: when people say, I stand on the shoulders of giants, they are talking about people like General Britto. It is our job, Gary, to grow future leaders of our Army, and I think you understand that better than anyone. Finally, you are incredibly humble. Command Sergeant Major Martin Celeste shared a story that I think captures it best. It was a hot summer day, and Gary was driving on to Fort Benning. For some reason, traffic was moving slowly, and he could see from a distance that there was something holding up the cars on the road ahead. As he pulled up to a congested intersection, he saw Gary, who was the CG of the base at the time, wearing his church clothes, sleeves rolled up, and helping a young soldier and his spouse change a flat tire. The congestion was from everyone rubbernecking on the CG's handiwork. Sergeant Major pulled up and said, "Sir, what's going on here?" To which Gary replied, "What do you think? Because I'm a general, I can't change a tire." This is a demonstration of what we all see in you, someone who, despite a distinguished career, is grounded, kind, and keeps it real. Gary, thanks for being an outstanding friend, teammate, and soldier. As you and Michelle step into this next chapter, know that your legacy will endure in the soldiers you've led, the leaders you've mentored, and the families you've empowered. And I know that you will continue to serve even when you hang up your uniform. I believe that you and Michelle have some travel plans ahead and a bucket list to get after that includes spending some time on the pickleball court so you can finally beat Donna Martin. Please keep in touch, and we wish you and your family all the best in the adventures ahead. This will defend.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Bridto.
Okay, I'm taking my handkerchief out first because I'm probably going to start crying or something. I'm just telling you right now. Hey, Chief, thank you. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure, beautiful day inside and out, and happy to be here. Not because I'm retiring, just happy to be here. Hey, before I go, though, I must cast a net of gratitude to the soldiers and leaders of the 3rd Infantry Regiment Old Guard, those troops outside in the salute battery just a few moments ago, and all of those on the headquarters DA and the former TRADOC staff that pulled it together once again, showed their excellence in putting this ceremony together for my family and me. So I'm going off script a lot today. I'd like to ask you to join me and give them a round of applause. Outstanding. We all need to love our troops and continue to. General Stumey, thank you for the kind words and what you and your team do every single day for our Army. And Sergeant McCarter, I don't know where you're at. One word, there you go, wow. You impressed us a few years ago at the Christmas concert, and again today, I would say you still got it. So awesome. Another grand slam. Former Secretary Warmer, thank you so much for coming here today. It means a lot to my family and I, and all the other VIPs, civilian and GOs as well, mentioned in the Chief's remarks. Sir, General George, thank you for the kind words from my family and me. And I really, really do appreciate the maneuver space that you gave me and Team TRADOC to execute the core mission of training lethal soldiers and developing competent leaders, and all that came with it. So I appreciate the maneuver space and the guidance to get that done. And as you mentioned, we've known each other for years, and I know that your heart is focused on soldiers and combat readiness, and I personally appreciate that, and I know the troops in the field appreciate it as well. Former Sergeant Major Grinston, fellow general officers, SES leaders, distinguished guests, family, and friends, thank you for your presence in joining Team Bridto this afternoon. The Chief talked to a few family members. I will tell you that we took over the entire Western Hotel last night, and that big group of about 100 people over there traveled here from Hawaii, Las Vegas, Denver, Colorado, Alabama, Virginia, Maryland, and of course, God's country, Massachusetts. But of course. So, the hard part now. Where do I start? As the Chief talked to, Chief, I actually wasn't 2 years in, I was about 2 weeks in. I had a fuzzy goatee and a mustache. It's a true story. Luckily, you didn't show that picture. But anyway, I definitely did not see today back at that freshman year at Penn State University, Altoona campus. As you mentioned, I joined ROTC just to have an extracurricular activity, and I wanted to do something outside. So up front, team, thanks to God. Thanks to God for the many, many blessings that I have had and our family has had as well. As many experienced a few life events that could have taken me in a different direction. And I must thank my dear mother, who I know is smiling down on us all today. I am thankful for the family foundation that she and many others gave me as a youngster. And back in Hyannis, Massachusetts, on Old Yarmouth Road and Yarmouth Road, family was literally everywhere. In fact, some are sitting up there now, several of us lived on the same street. Grandfather, great-grandfather, aunt, uncle, and us down the road, and a cousin on the corner. It seemed like a 1 mile stretch, it was about all of 1 or 2 blocks. But nobody had a lot of money, didn't matter. Everybody pulled together, cared for each other, and simply got it done. And as I reflect back, I now know that those days taught me respect for all people and a strong work ethic. Grandfather wouldn't let us go to the beach or anything until you got your butt out there and pulled some weeds. Trust me. Everybody. Now, I know that strong work ethic and caring for people, dignity and respect for people, both of which I know helped throughout my career. So 38 plus years is a long time. As the chief said, especially when I told my then fiancée, Michelle, I'm only going to do 4 years and get out, we'll go do something else. So it's probably best that I start with that most important person in my life, Michelle. I don't know if it was in the slideshow earlier or not, but Michelle was by my side when I was commissioned 39 years ago. Standing right there. I had a little more hair back then, but she was standing right there. And I would tell you, by the way, she was the best looking girl on campus, in my opinion. And that's the only opinion that matters right now. Right? And yes, Chief, we did meet at a frat party. I have no idea which frat it was and what the music was. I don't know. But yes, when I walked home to our apartment, I told my roommate, Brian Bond, I'm going to marry that girl. And here we are. And it did help that she had to sneak me in the dining facility because I was broker than broke, trust me on that one. So, Michelle, just a few years later, we stand here together today, finishing this great Army journey. I know you have been the foundation, the wind behind my sail, and the reason for any successes that I and the team have had in this career. So thank you for supporting my career, often at the sacrifice of some of your own personal goals, for tolerating what will soon be move number 19, as you corrected me, raising our sons, and all that you have done for Army families and soldiers. And in the months and years ahead, I look forward to both quantity and quality time in the years ahead. And yes, we will get that nice house that we've been talking about for a while. Matthew and Patrick, unfortunately, you didn't get a choice. You were born into the Army, Army life, multiple schools, time away from home, deployments and more. And through all of it, both of you excelled at school, sports, and college. I am so very proud of both of you and the men that you have become. Resilient, smart, and just damn good fellas. And I wrote down here I was going to talk about being a grandfather, but I scratched that. We can talk about it a little later on, though. And also, team, Michelle and I are especially thankful for the many, many family members here today. The chief mentioned a few. My father, James, sister, Lisa, stepmother-in-law, Wilmer, aunts, cousins, siblings, and others from all over the place. Thank you for making the trip. It really does mean a lot to us. Also fortunate, I know I've seen one, I think one others here as well, to have a few Army ROTC buddies from way back in the day. Well, I guess they're over there. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming down. Joanne as well. and some soldiers, some peers from the infantry officer basic course, now BOLIC, also from way back in the day. Tony Baker, you here? There we go. Now, I have to tell this, this isn't a bad dad joke. This is actually a true story. You saw I had some wavy hair back in the day. But Tony Baker nicknamed me Johnny Mathis. Okay. Check a hole, Tony. Is that true? All right, there we go. I'm hoping there's some old enough to know who Johnny Mathis was. We can talk about that later on. And also, I'm very, very, very blessed to have learned early on in my career the value of non-commissioned officers. A platoon sergeant I had, Sergeant First Class retired Pete Adams, and his wife is here as well, I think. Pete, where you at? There you go. Okay. Thank you, Pete and Cheryl. And I believe you have 2 soldiers from the Scout platoon back in the day. Stand up, gentlemen. There we go. CSC, 5th of 502nd, 1989. Way to go, gentlemen. Hey, a little bit about Pete, and I could never figure it out. First of all, what an honor, gentlemen, for you to be here today. When we would go to the field, come back dirty, smelly, stinky, didn't know how to clean yourself. 5 minutes later, Sergeant Adams had on a pair of shiny boots. I could never figure it out. Hey, sir, you get a new pair in his wall locker. So he always looked good at all times. And also some fellow combat vets from a couple of units. 115 Infantry, can do. Thanks, guys. I didn't know so many were here today. And soldiers and leaders from about every single assignment brings me great joy and is evidence of the instant bond and family-like ties that we all enjoy in the Army. Hey, team, after I reflect on almost 4 decades of service now, I believe now more than ever that God has a plan and a path for each of us, and we may not know it. You might not see it, you might not understand it, and you might even fight against it, but one way or another, you're going to follow that path. Perhaps that is what led 4 years that I planned initially and promised initially to become 38 plus. Now, I'm not going to recap all of it, trust me. If I do that, the easy pass lane is going to close and everybody's going to be mad at me and won't get home on time. Hey, Dan, I get credit for that joke, Danny, okay? But I am going to hit just a few moments, a few highlights that I now know help shape a wonderful journey. The first one was a master sergeant that I met on my 5th day in Germany, signing in. I was in processing. Some of you have heard this story, but it has important context. I was in processing. He was out processing. I was a brand new second lieutenant, had not even signed for the platoon yet. His advice made little sense back then, but it ended up being the very best advice and served as a guidepost that I have followed through my entire career. His simple but sage advice was, LT, come here. Always work for your soldiers, not your evaluations, and everything will be okay. And I would say that is timeless and enduring advice, which has definitely helped over the 38 plus years now. I mentioned this a few moments ago. I was thankful to have learned the value of the non-commissioned officer corps early on. Had that platoon sergeant who was fit. I told you about his shiny boots. He can still do more push-ups and pull-ups than most of us now. And Sergeant Adams, thank you for that role model, and thank you for that investment. As I mentioned, he's here today with a few other soldiers. And I'll extend that same gratitude to the many of the amazing non-commissioned officers that I've served with, and officers as well, over the years. You are the reason that Team Bridto is here today, and thank you. I consider you friends and comrades. Combat is no stranger to many in the room, and I'm thankful to have a few troops from the mighty 115 Can-Do Battalion. And as the old guy standing here today out of that battalion, I am very, very proud to see young officers and soldiers from back then serving as colonels and senior non-commissioned officers today. And Leon, I wasn't going to call you out, but I am now. A team some may know, we had a soldier named Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash, was awarded the Medal of Honor in the White House, 16 December 2021, posthumously awarded. Leon was his platoon leader back in the day. Leon is now a promotable lieutenant colonel. So Leon, I'm going to show you off, buddy. Please stand up. And all your can-do mates as well. That wasn't in my speech, but it was in my heart, Leon. Just had to call it out, buddy. Hey, earlier I mentioned the path. Well, along my path, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of tremendously talented soldiers and Army civilian professionals that made our Army team the best team for anyone to serve on. I know, and have known for many, many years, that is why I love serving. And Chief, that's why I want to continue to support your Army. So as I retire, as Team Bridto retires, I take great comfort in looking back and know we have great people, outstanding people from all stations of life who deserve good leadership, caring, and training. I also know that we have good current and future leaders, all Army professionals, whom will deliver that caring and training. And we have damn good soldiers that will take that training, fight, and win. So I'll close where I started, somewhat. I'm happy I stayed on that path that I may not have seen. I'm happy that I stayed on that path that God had planned. Honored and proud to have worn this uniform on this great team. Although we look forward to the next journey. Take that back. I'm looking forward to the next journey. Well, that same girl that was standing here March 15th, 1986, when I got commissioned, my sweetheart, Michelle. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This will defend. God bless you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Army song. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please remain in place until the departure of the official party. You are welcome to join General Bridto and his family for a receiving line taking place on the floor to your front. Thank you for attending today's special ceremony, and enjoy the rest of your day.